Assalamu alaikum and good morning, dear students. For today's lesson, we are going to cover a new topic on probability. So first, we are going to cover the first subtopic for probability on Introduction to Probability. Our lesson objective for today is for you to be able to recognize real-life examples of probability, understand the concepts of probability, and use the vocabulary of probability when describing events, such as more likely for the events to occur, equally likely for the events to occur, less likely for the event to occur, and impossible to occur or to happen. Probability is where you have a chance or a possibility for an event to happen. So we have this vocabulary on the left side where we have certain, impossible, possible, likely, unlikely, more likely, less likely, equally likely. So let's have a look at the first word, which is certain, where it means that it will definitely happen. Such events such as the sun will rise and set every day. We know that. And people will breathe air. You learn this in science, so you would know that we'll breathe air every single day and we need it for us to keep on living. And as for impossible, this is where such event will not happen. It will not happen, such as you growing wings, which is very impossible, going to the sun, or breathing underwater. As for possible, this is where an event could happen, may or may not actually happen, such as you visiting another country. So this is possible, for you to visit another country. It could happen, but what might stop it from not happening? Maybe because of COVID, like such situation right now that we are not able to visit another country. Another example would be getting a new pet. It could happen for you to get a new pet, but what might cause it not to happen, like your parents are against of you getting a new pet. They might give a new pet on a later on time as a reward or something. It could happen. So this is where such event is possible to happen. Okay. As for likely, we can define this as will probably happen. So it might happen, okay, but then it's not going to happen unless you decide for it to happen, such as you reading from a book next week. So you have the idea to read the book, but then you might not want it again next week and you decide to do another hobby. So this is where you have a likely chance to read a book next week, but then it might not happen as you might change to another hobby next week. Okay? And next one is where you have unlikely, where an event is probably not happening, such as, but then it is not impossible, such as getting a new pet tiger. It's not impossible, but then the chances for you to own such pet is not common. So it is unlikely for it to happen, but it is likely when you want to adopt or get a pet such as cat or fish. But then, as for getting a pet tiger, it will probably not happen as it is not common. As for more likely, so this is something that you might be able to relate when you are at school, where you are more likely to do eating at break time compared to do homework, or the other way around. But I don't think that you will do your homework during your break time. So that is less likely chance for that to happen. That is another example for less likely, such as like this, where you have an event such as to leave school early to go to Jodong Park. So this is less likely to happen when it comes to school time. As for equally likely, we have 50 50% chances for a coin when you toss to land on head or tail. Okay? So let's narrow it down to always, sometimes, and never, and try to look at perspective what it is and in terms of things that we see or do in school. So let's have a look at always. Okay, so when you are in school, you always do have a break period, and you always see a teacher for from 7:30 until 12:30, right? For every subject. And for sometimes, as such, like you going to the library, you sometimes go to the library. It's not going to be every day. It's not going to be always for you to go to library, but there are days where you go to the library. And as for seeing a cat, there are no cats at school, but when they do, when you see a cat, it is not something that you always see every day in school. Only on certain day or when a cat happens to visit a school. And as for never, you'll never bring a pet to school, like you don't bring your fish to school. So this is something that it does not happen in school or impossible to happen at school. So can you think of another example for event that we see always or sometimes or never do in school? Okay. Now, let's have a look at another perspective of possible or impossible for an event to happen. So we have this example here where we have A, it's going to rain today. What do you think? Is it impossible or possible? Well, we cannot predict the weather, so we can say that it is possible for it to be raining today. B, you see a flying cat. Is this possible or impossible? This is impossible. A cat cannot fly. Okay, it can only walk, but not fly. Right. For C, what about eating at Jollibee? Is it possible or not impossible? Okay, let's try to think of when we are not in pandemic situation where we are able to dine in. So it is possible for you to eat at Jollibee and having it dine in. But then it can turn into impossible when we have COVID situation. But in this case, we are thinking of a situation where we are not in pandemic. So you are possible to have dine in at Jollibee. As for growing purple hair, this is, as you know, automatically this is impossible. And as for shopping during Friday prayers hours, you know that this is impossible to happen in Brunei. So we organize this in the form of table of possible and impossible. This is something that we will do at school if we don't have pandemic right now. But then, yeah, so I have to explain this in this form, okay? So the lesson objective for this subtopic is for you to be able to understand and use the probability scale where you have a certain outcome is equal to 1 or 100% and an impossible outcome to be 0% and an equally likely outcome, which is a 50-50 chances of equivalent to half or 0.5 or 50%. So this is the probability scale that we are going to apply and use for probability chapter. And as you can see, there are different words to describe the possible probability outcome. So when we have an impossible event to happen, meaning there's no chances for that event to happen, so it is a 0%. meaning that the event does not happen at all. Such as when we have a look at the early slides just now, you going to the sun. That is impossible to happen. So it is a 0% chances for you to be able to go to the sun or for that event to even happen. So as for unlikely, it is less likely for an event to happen, meaning the chances for that event to happen is almost impossible. But it's not impossible, but it's almost impossible. So the percent for this one is 25%, or in the form of a quarter, 1/4. Okay. As for equally likely, this is where an event has equal chances to happen or not to happen. So it is sort of like a 50-50 chances, like 50% chance for the event to happen, 50% chance for the event to not happen. As for likely, this is where you have a high chance for the event to happen. So we have 75% or 3/4 chance for that event to happen. And as for certain, you know that the event will happen. It will happen, it will be run, and it has 100% chances for the event to occur or to happen. So based on the probability scale just now, we are going to apply the words of certain, likely, unlikely, and impossible to this example. So we have here a gumball machine where it has 18 gumball inside the machine, and if we were to describe even further, we have one pink gumball and the rest are yellow gumball. So it is certain and it will happen that we will get a gumball. So this is 100% chances for you to get a gumball out of this machine, correct? And it is likely that we will get a yellow gumball. Why is it likely? Because as you can see here, we have majority of the gumballs to be in yellow. So we have high chances for the yellow gumball to come out of the machine. So we say that it is likely that we will get a yellow gumball. And the next one, it is unlikely that we will get a pink gumball. Why? Since we only have one pink gumball here, it has less chance rather than yellow gumball to come out of the machine, as it is only one. Okay, compared to the yellow gumball where it has 17 inside the machine. So it doesn't have much chances for it to come out of the machine. So we say that it is unlikely that we will get a pink gumball because it is only one that we can see inside the machine. And it is impossible for us to get a blue gumball. So it has 0 chances for us to get a blue gumball from the machine because there is no blue gumball inside this machine or any other colors besides from pink and yellow. Okay, so that is how we use the probability scale for this example. So your quiz of the day, okay, if I were to pick a ball from a bag that contains 3 red balls and 1 blue ball, what is the probability chance of me getting a blue ball based on probability scale? Is it impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, or certain? Can you try to guess and send me your answer via WhatsApp? And that is the end of the lesson today.